Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Wednesday, February 18th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming here from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell, joined today by not one, but two special guests. Of course, if it's Wednesday, it is. Former Lowell Mayor, City Councilor, former head of Lowell High School, Bill Samaras, is with us. Good morning there, Mr.
See what you go through when you retire.
I know.
Lots of fun.
Don't retire.
Our other guest has many years to go before he can say he's retired from anything.
Good morning.
He's actually a brand new Lowell City Councilor, the District 4 City Councilor, representing downtown and parts of Pawtucketville, Back Central, and Centerville. Do I have the whole sausage district? Did I miss any place?
There is a sliver of the acre.
A sliver of the acre.
One building from the acre that I have.
The dreaded sliver of the acre. Yeah. City Councilor Sean McDonough is here. How are you, Mr. McDonough?
Good.
Councilor McDonough.
Thank you. Hello. Nice to be here again.
Good to have you here as always. We got to take advantage of these school vacation weeks because you are a teacher, which in case people didn't know before you got elected, now we all know based on the council discussions and ethics discussions and whatnot.
My legs were a little sore from last night. All that standing up, sitting down, running around.
At least you're getting your steps in. Look at it that way.
I'm gonna get an insert for my dress shoes.
All right. Well, we got lots to talk about, including about some of the ethical challenges that are being brought up and debated as a result of your serving on the council and the number of school-related issues that are out there. So we're certainly going to talk about that. Interesting city council meeting last night. Lots of things. You've also filed a couple of interesting motions in your first month and some change as a councilor, including one that stirred up quite the hornet's nest. We're going to talk about all of it, and who knows where else the conversation will take us. But first, let me thank my Daily Pulse sponsor, Ray Booten. He's a licensed realtor in Massey and New Hampshire. He's a certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you are looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, get in touch with Ray today. You can find him online at realestaterayBooten.com. That's realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint for hosting us here in the WellPoint Studios. It's the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members at WellPoint. Your whole health is their whole point. Thank you to WellPoint. Thank you to Ray. Thanks again to Mr. Samaras, Councilor McDonough, for being here. Before we start, we actually broke the story yesterday that the head of the United Teachers of Lowell, Paul Georges, has decided that's it. He's 17 consecutive two-year terms, as he told me, is more than enough. I will not seek election to an 18th. So when his term...
He really did? I don't believe it.
He's not on. He's not on.
Yeah, so he said he's not running, but he is on the job until the school year ends in June, whatever that date is. And he promised me that in true Paul Georges fashion, he's going to be very active in what he anticipates could be a contentious budget process, which may or may not even include privatization, which we will talk about with you. But just kind of your thoughts as a teacher who came in, and you're relatively young, 10 years you've been teaching in the school in Lowell, right, or no?
I have not been teaching for 10 years in Lowell. I've been teaching I'm in my 8th year now, and I am in my...
I gave you 2 more years of seniority towards that retirement.
I am in my 4th year in Lowell. My wife is in 1 year, plus 1 year on me in Lowell. Right. I taught in Methuen before I came here.
All right, so you're kind of so you came in at a time where what the teachers are getting in relation to the competing cities and towns is right on par. When Paul Georges, one of those things in our story, if you go to InsideLowell.com, you can read the story, but Paul Georges told me when he first took his oath of office in 1992, the starting teacher pay was $22,000. It's now $66,000. And then he told me that today the starting teachers make, as I said, 66, but the high-end teachers, the ones with PhDs, are well over 100,000, where back in his day it was 34,000. Long way of saying, I assume you're pretty grateful for the job that Paul Georges did.
I met Paul Georges for the first time when I was in college, and I alerted you to this article in the Lowell Sun, lest anybody think that I only know how to put on a show at the city council podium that one time. the adjunct faculty were in contract negotiations, and it was a who's who of labor politics in Lowell that night. I fell into the role as the student speaker because three people who were probably more qualified than I was at the time, our student trustee, someone from the student government, somebody, all couldn't make it. Someone got sick, whatever. So here I am. John Drinkwater is the MC of the evening. Paul Georges is there from the UTL. Bob Ferrant was there from the faculty. It was like, are you involved in labor politics in Lowell? You were at this event. And so that's where I met Paul. And it was after he had spoke, I had spoke. After I said what I said, he said, I really want to get you in the UTL someday. I said, I like this guy. But I didn't start teaching it at Lowell High. I was in the Peace Corps. I came back. I wound up teaching in Methuen. I came in, and yeah, here I am. Paul has done an amazing job at the UTL.
I think I heard you say he's the reason you're teaching in Lowell.
I wanted to come work.
The equity in pay and benefits.
He was. I mean, he has his strengths and his weaknesses, and everybody has faults. But when you look at what he was able to do as the president of a local teachers union, and the increase in wages and conditions, which is the first job really as the president of a union, whichever side of the negotiating table you're on, I think you have to respect how good he was at that part of the job.
I used to joke on radio that if I could have somebody negotiating a contract for me, Paul Georges would be that guy. Little did I know I probably should have used this.
Yeah.
But he was also a teacher in my building, so I had the superintendent calling me saying, "Where's Mr. Georges?" I had a good time being the go-between.
What were your dealings with, like, as you mentioned, you were the headmaster, the head of schools at Lowell High for a long time, and then you dealt with him also as a city councilor. Just kind of your recollections.
No, the thing is, as you said, some people may say, "Oh, he's a hard man to deal with," or what have you. But if you're someone he's negotiating for, that's the person you want. He was. I mean, he came in at a time when the teacher unions, they weren't given the attention that they should have been. And the one thing, he was good at making them aware of who he was, who the union was, and what they were trying to do. And that's really very, very important.
And I think people misunderstand his role, that he's not the superintendent of schools, and he's not a school committee member or city councilor. His job, he gets paid for it, is up until June, is to get the best possible deal, money-wise, working conditions, whatever that little mix looks like, for his union members. And I would always say, if only the school department, the school committee, and the city council fought as hard for the taxpayers as Mr. Georges fought for the teachers, we'd probably have less griping about Mr. Georges' job performance. Correct. But he was unbelievably effective.
Well, and the other piece about how effective the other piece that I think is very important, especially when you look at what's gone on around the state, it's close by as Andover, is that for the 32 years that Paul Georges has been the president of the UTL, and people will say, well, strikes are illegal. That's great. It hasn't stopped.
Sure.
Brookline, Andover, Gloucester, I can't even list them all. Paul Georges was able, the UTL was able over the last 30 odd years to get wages and conditions in Lowell that are competitive with other communities in the state, that are able to hold on to decent teaching talent. And he did it all without the kind of, walkout. I said labor action on the radio, and I already got someone saying, well, on Wednesdays, sometimes we wear red T-shirts. Okay, that is also a labor action, but there was never a strike. There was never a work stoppage.
Right. He never, and having to strike in Lowell, no disrespect to the Andover kids and teachers, but you can walk away in Andover and the parents will probably find a babysitter for the day. In Lowell, that you're affecting the most, disadvantaged population out there if those schools have to shut down for any reason. And to his credit, Paul Georges never had to resort to that, and his union members never supported it.
And that's the piece that I think it's not only was he able to negotiate the better wages, the better conditions, it's that he was able to win. The UTL has been able to win as much as they've won without that kind of disruptive labor action that you see in other communities.
But I was able to go to New York with him and the superintendent when there was a movement amongst the unions to get more involved directly in education, because education was faltering at the time. People weren't giving it the support and what have you. So he became very helpful in that particular time, because all of a sudden it wasn't just going after better salaries for teachers, but actually supporting education, the base of education,
And they have the sorry, and then I'm done. The pathway for paraeducators to become teachers was a union initiative that was very good. And the other piece is the Lowell Teacher Academy, which I have not taken advantage of, but is a very good program available for Lowell teachers.
Yeah, that was the other thing he made sure to point out to me, was paras were making $5 an hour in 1992 when he got assumed the helm. They're now at $33,000, and I believe the regular benefits package that everybody else gets. So,
but we also got some fantastic teachers out of that group, because of his movement.
Yeah. So congratulations again to Paul Georges on his retirement. I have invited him to come on, and he is going to come up here one day and sit in here with me, and we'll have some fun. I always loved interviewing Paul on the radios. All right, Mr. McDonough, Councilor McDonough, how are you enjoying the wonderful world of politics? What's more rough and tumble, a high school classroom or a city council chamber?
It is everything I thought it would be. I'm going to keep using that answer.
What motivated you to run in the first place? Then,
There were a few factors. There was the neighborhood service, a constituent services neighborhood service piece. I had some ongoing issues around where I live that weren't really being addressed. The whole thing in Hamilton Canal really pushed me over the edge, and I didn't talk about that as much during the campaign, because trying to get into, well, I didn't like the LDA is not a very campaignable piece. But that was a really big factor in this for me.
You're talking about the Lipoli.
The Lipoli is going to build, right, and then now we're going to get the wood frame thing, and it's not particularly thrilled with the way that all went down. Mm-hmm. And then reading through the executive session minutes really put a nicer picture on it. Well,
you had indicated that you would have voted against settling. So you would, even if it meant the city would be tied up for an even lengthier period of time in potential litigation and delays in moving anything along?
I think, and I said this to you, I don't know if I said this to you on the air or off the air, I think when you look at that parcel of land and the discussion citywide that went on around that, when you have Richard Howe Jr. and Eric Gitchier on the same side of an issue like this, there's probably something to it. I mean, they are not often arguing in a similar, and Gilday was too. I think there's, I don't know what the sense of urgency in that, on that particular parcel for an apartment building was, especially not when you have the Link project going on. The plan that we had for HCID was about 20 years old, I think. Mm-hmm. The city is in a different place today than it was 20 years ago. I'm glad that there was some movement originally with Sal Lipoli, but then when that fell apart, I think that was an okay time to reevaluate what we were doing and not just kind of get a shovel in the ground for the sake of a shovel in the ground.
Sure, but you would have very likely ended up in some kind of litigation.
Yeah.
Which then freezes all development, as we're kind of finding out with the high school project. Right. Now, we can talk about suing Skanska and Suffolk, but once you get into courts, everything freezes. And I think the same thing would have happened potentially down at Hamilton Canal if Mr. Lipoli decided to exercise whatever rights he was given under that contract.
And and the issue is he knows how to do that. I mean, he's good at that.
And I guess my question,
unfortunately,
or it's not even my question. Maybe it is a question. I don't know what the rush was with that Lipoli project. Unlike the high school or some other matter that could come up for litigation or whatever, where the building is either half built or already there, or or we're gonna have to move. Where are the high school kids gonna go? It's an empty lot. It was an empty lot. It's been an empty lot for 20 years. what's the right, like if this gets if it did get tied up in litigation and we're not, what is the, how much harm is there versus the potential upside of getting to get what we actually wanted developed on that lot?
Well, there is a developer that now has it and has put some proposal forward, right? I don't know what do we know when the start date is on?
I don't know when the start date is, but it's the proposal that was put forward. We more or less let Salapoli pick the developer that was going to take it over. And what is now being built is a wood framed apartment building, right? Like we have lots of apartment buildings in that section of the city. Jackson Street is full of them. Wynn is putting another one in across the street. I think I just don't see what the rush was for.
Are you talking about we need commercial space?
We need commercial space.
Yeah.
We need commercial
Is that a
space. We need
definitive
green
thing?
space.
Taxable commercial
Taxable commercial space.
Is that a definite thing that what I call them Creedence Clearwater Revival, CCF instead of CCR? What is it a definite thing that they're going to just stick with what Lapoli kind of told Lowell, take it or leave it, a 5-story stick build? Or are they? I've heard that there's some discussion about potentially putting commercial on it and maybe doing something better than what Lapoli had said.
All I am aware of is the apartment piece, the residential piece. I'll be happy to be wrong. This is not like if this turns out, if I'm wrong and this comes out and it is amazing and we're like, wow, I will be the first to say I'm sorry. And right? Like I will be so happy that across the street from where I live actually turned into this really nice space. I just think that we had the opportunity to hold these developers accountable without, a gun to our head, because there wasn't a project ongoing. There was no real, I still don't see the urgency on that parcel to make sure that we were getting exactly what we wanted as a city.
I'm not rooting for you to be wrong, but I'm rooting for you to be wrong on this one.
No, I am rooting for you to be wrong.
I believe that we deserve better in that thing, and I think we still can get better in Hamilton Canal. You believe, and many of your colleagues last night believe we deserve better and can get better in terms of snow removal.
Yeah.
That was an interesting discussion last night. I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert in it, but clearly you were not happy with the report that came back. You don't believe it addressed the questions that you asked, and other councilors don't believe. They kind of bundled a whole bunch of things in. What were you looking for specifically in that snow removal and procedures report, Councilor McDonough? I
was looking for a detailed report with the standard operating procedure for the winter, what did I call it in the motion? The winter operations protocol in high pedestrian traffic locations in the city. What I would have expected would be some of the routes that we have, knowing what kind of equipment we have or need in order to do this work, what routes, what parts of routes the city is responsible for, right? Versus where we've identified that that's a sidewalk that's the responsibility of a private building owner. I would have expected some highlighting, some understanding of when we say a high pedestrian traffic location, just like we do with cars. We know what our arterial routes are, that we have those routes for our denser neighborhoods where people are walking. The Western Canal Bridge, right, by the North Common Village, that's Western Canal, to get to Market Basket. There's still like a foot of snow on that bridge. So if you can't walk from one side of Dutton Street, the downtown part of Jackson Street, Market Street, over across into the acre to go to the Market Basket, you can't go anywhere, right? And those bridges are not on a landowner; those bridges are on us.
So what are the rules for the sidewalks? 'Cause we hear an awful lot of that in front of somebody's house. Technically, the city owns those sidewalks, and yet the landlord or the owner of the property is expected to clean it and can be fined. To me, that is counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. The owner should be the one responsible. But I'm going to guess by this point there's been some decided law in the court over what cities and towns can and cannot do.
And it's in the ordinance book. You have 12 hours from the time the snow stops. And I'm paraphrasing, so if I miss a sentence and there's a snow ordinance lawyer out there who wants to say, like, McDonough missed that part, and I admit. But the gist of it is that you have 12 hours from when the snow stops to get the sidewalk that is adjacent to your building clear. Obviously, that's not always the case. We also only have so many inspectors. So there are parts where it's like, we're not going to go out and start fining every homeowner in the city for a sidewalk. Oh, it's been 16 hours and you're still... But when you're talking about the acre, downtown, back central, you can't be walking in the middle of the road, right? There were kids walking to Lowell High School in the middle of Dutton. They were walking down Dutton Street because those sidewalks, days after the storm, were still, you needed snowshoes. And that to me is unacceptable.
Right, they're walking down roads that were already narrowed because of this.
They're walking in the middle of narrow roads. Dutton Street is a main. People are going, even when it's narrow. People are going fast, and you have high school students, you have senior citizens, alike in the middle of the road because there is nowhere else to walk.
So one of the things I know from doing snow removal myself downtown for too many years now is that these bobcats hit certain sidewalks, certain neighborhoods. They're not always thoroughly, but when you get, a huge foot snowstorm plus, they're usually pretty good about the downtown areas, about getting some level of cleanliness, and then others are required to go out and do the rest. Are there any operations like that in neighborhoods or high traffic, like the business corridors, the Westford Street business corridor, the Bridge Street business corridor, et cetera?
I put in that motion looking for the winter operation protocol in high pedestrian traffic locations throughout the city. It was not just for downtown. It wasn't just District 4. It was the whole city. And I put that motion in for the first time on January 13th, which was 10 days roughly before the big storm. If those protocols were in place, if those plans are in place, I agree with what Councilor Robinson said last night. That should have been click, print, and put it in the packet. We already have the maps. We already know personnel assignments. We know the Parks Department is going to send their people to do the sidewalks, and here are the routes, and this is the order that we want to do it in. But I never got that. So I agree with you. I would love to know that information. That's why I asked.
My hunch is there probably aren't any set protocols. Yeah. You dealt with this when you were on the council. Snow removal always comes up every winter. To your knowledge, are there standard protocols that DPW or whoever's responsible follow in a snowstorm?
It's just like what you were saying. What is the building owner responsible for? What's the tenant responsible for? And the thing is, I think right now we're looking for clarity. That's at this particular point. The city's grown. It's grown fast. It's gone in a different direction. So I think that's
and I think
reasonable.
we have these, and I mentioned this briefly last night. We have side by sides, and I always get the name wrong. The orange ones, the little 4-wheelers. Mm-hmm. They get the plows on them. We have a couple in the Roy garage. I would be, if we were able to see winter operations protocols and we could get an idea of where the city is responsible, where residents are responsible, and where we've identified as being these important areas that are going to need a sidewalk clear, maybe we do want to make sure that some of these elementary or middle schools have a side-by-side so that they can do just the area right by their school. Maybe we need to make sure that we're hitting the bridges so you're not walking in the middle of Fletcher Street to get to Market Basket.
But the question you asked me is basically when I first came on, all those people are gone. It's a whole different crew. And the issue is, I think what happens, the new people do it this way, this way, this way. And it usually, nothing really of a bigger nature happens till the city council says, we want clarity for this particular thing. On this issue. And I think that's what's happening here.
And it is really important to remember. We got the budget update last night too. Or we got not the budget update. We got the informational that there will be a budget update. And when you look, as I have, at the pay increases over the last 3 years at the top of the food chain, right? At the top couple of levels of the food chain within the city, we are paying top dollar for our directors and our managers, right? Our managerial positions, our ordinance employees, they're paid very well. I think if we're going to pay like that, we need to expect that those departments that our city administration that is being paid very well have these operations in place, that have the procedures and the protocols in place.
But the issue is, I think you're right in saying, okay, we want clarity.
Right.
But if you look at all the other communities and some of the more affluent communities, and you go in there downtown, there are people walking the streets there.
Right.
I think this has been a very unusual time. It's extreme cold, unending snowstorm or snow. It's just, I think it's overtaxed a systems that are not well in place.
So this was there was talk last night. We've had 15, 18, 20-inch snowstorms before. I will say that this winter has been different than any I remember, only because the best snow removal is Mother Nature. You get a snowstorm, but then I remember the next day we were out from school, we'd go out and play and there'd be some sun and you'd have melting. We're getting major snowstorms and then complete icing conditions. So I get that there's a challenge. But there was a part of the discussion last night that caught my ear, and that was, do we even have, I think Mayor 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 was trying to get to it, do we even have the resources to do the things properly that we were trying to get? And I'm not sure we got the answer from Commissioner St. Cyr about, from what I heard, I kind of heard, no, we don't have it. Or if we do have the right trucks or right vehicles in place, we don't have enough drivers / private contractors to get them. Is that, did I hear that properly last night? Is that kind of what you interpreted as well?
I interpreted a piece of that. That is also why, and to the mayor's point here, it's why my motion came before the major snowstorm. And it's also why I am looking more for the standard operating procedure, because the only way there's everyone is struggling and we're having a hard time removing snow. That's true. And that's true here. It's true in other communities. And then there's Councilor 𝐒𝐿𝐥𝐠's motion, which was, what went well and what didn't go well and how do we evaluate that? The only way that we can really evaluate and learn from this storm and this not great snow removal that we've had is by, one, acknowledging that we are struggling, and two, by having a real plan in place and seeing if this is what our plan is, this is how we're supposed to operate. Did we? And if we didn't, why didn't we? What went wrong? Where was the breakdown? Was it a piece of equipment we didn't have that we needed? Was it a staffing issue? Was it, we said do this route first, and it turns out if we do this route first and then we come this way, we put all the snow back. Those are the pieces that I think we need to be able to see, and we need to know that the city is looking at so that we can do better next time.
I think it is staffing, though.
It probably is.
You also hinted, though, at the budget that when you guys kind of looked at the numbers, where we are, we're not done with winter yet, and supposedly we're getting some more snow tonight,
right.
potentially Friday, and maybe a nor'easter Sunday into Monday, and we've already blown past the budget, so we're at it's coming at a significant cost. More to be learned. Are they coming back with more details for you folks? Is that how it was left last night?
That is how it was left last night. I think I asked if I had to refile it or if it would just come back, and they said it would come back.
Okay. All right.
I just want to add, when you say staffing, though, when I went to Lowell High School, the 22 building and the 1890 building, there were 34 custodians that manned that building. Okay.
How many are there today?
When I left, there were 16. The whole complex. And so that it's happened everywhere. And you're talking the labor force. And you're talking, so I think when you're doing this, there has to be a real look at what you have.
There was a motion that last night about trash barrels in downtown and when there's what the protocol is for when they're supposed to be removed. My understanding, well, at least in the town of Chelmsford, you can't wheel it out before 7 p.m. the night before, and then you better get it off the street by 7 p.m. the night of your pickup, assuming that they've come by to get it. were you looking for that year round or specific to the snow removal when you filed a motion last night about that, or it was a couple of meetings ago you did that?
No, this was last night.
Oh, it was last night.
This was
Okay.
last night. Yeah. I'm looking for that year round. I think it became really apparent with the snow removal that we have empty trash barrels sitting around on certain sidewalks, and I don't even think everyone knows who they belong to. We also have dumpsters over by is that Palmer Street Coffee Mill?
Yeah, there's an alley there.
There's an alley on the other side of the street from Coffee Mill. There's like 6 dumpsters and a whole load of bins.
Which leads to this building, and it's so iced over and blocked by vehicles, people parking, that the trash hasn't been emptied here forever and probably won't be till the spring thaw.
And then we have other businesses that are storing their outdoor seating is still on the sidewalk, even though it's January, and no one. If anyone knows what the regulations are, they're not following them. And the easiest kind of excuse when you're not following the regulations is to say you don't know. So I think making sure that all of our property owners are aware of whatever it is we currently have on the books, and then making sure that the city's enforcing that's the only way we're going to see any sort of progress here. It doesn't look good, and it's an accessibility problem. And then in snow removal, you have what happened over at the Athenian. I mean, you must have half the city's trash barrels, and they're not even yours, right? I mean,
and they're out there, and as you said, it's a year-long thing, I was always under the impression these barrels have to be moved, and for a period of time they were being rolled in and out, but now there are literally 12, a dozen or so barrels. They're all recycling, mind you. Don't get me going on that. But they just sit there every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then when the snow comes, those city bobcats that I talked about can't get down Palmer Street. And then everything freezes over, so it becomes a huge issue.
And we have these wider sidewalks downtown because there's a lot of people walking around in downtown. And this is true in other parts of the city as well, where there are wider sidewalks, where there's commercial. That's why it's commercial and mixed use anywhere. But when you use the sidewalk for long-term storage of your junk, either your trash, your dumpster, your whatever, you defeat the whole point of having a wider sidewalk, which is I can be walking this way and someone on a scooter or a stroller or walking can be walking this way, and we can pass each other without anyone going in the street. I can't do that going past all those trash cans. Right? No, nobody can.
Yeah. And that was, and the same thing with the outdoor seating, sidewalk in particular, you were supposed to, I remember submitting our plans, you're supposed to leave enough, a certain amount of feet, I forget what they are, but the whole idea is wheelchair accessibility being the big part of that as well. So I appreciate you bringing that motion up last night. We're chatting with Lowell City Councilor Sean McDonough. He's joining us here on the Daily Pulse on this Wednesday, February 18th. We'll get back to our discussion in a quick sec. Let me just thank all of our podcast sponsors. Of course, our Daily Pulse sponsor, Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Mass and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both states as well. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to WellPoint for hosting us here in the WellPoint studios. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, TMI Cares, managing and developing their own properties for over 30 years. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to generations of families throughout Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925, and by the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in our communities through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Back with former Lowell Mayor Bill Samaras, my regular Wednesday co-host. City Councilor Sean McDonough. All right, let's get to some of the good stuff here. First of all, you did have a motion. Now I'm confused. I went back and I looked at all your motions because I wanted to talk about them. And was this the first one, the land swap with the Link project? Your very first motion that you filed was asking for if the city could do a land swap with UMass Lowell regarding the Link project.
Yes.
I don't know what you were getting at. We haven't seen a report on that yet.
Not.
What land are you looking to swap?
I believe I talked about it on the floor, but it wasn't in the body of the motion. I'm looking for, by the Tsongas Center, there are 2 development parcels that are still owned by the city. That way back when we built the Tsongas, they were identified as being development parcels. I'm gonna get their names wrong. I think it's like Lot B and Lot C, or it might be Lot C and Lot D. But there's a lot on Hall Street, and then there's that patch of triangle of grass by the parking garage.
That's where the sign, that
The sign,
nice
it's
Saga
the-
Center digital
Right.
sign is.
Yeah.
The city owns that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the city owns that land. I don't know who
Yes.
owns the sign. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't look at who owned the sign.
I would assume. Well, I would assume UMass Lowell is paying some level of rent to put
Right.
their sign there, but
So what I'm looking at is the university wants to put in a hotel and all these other practice rink, maybe some other kind of commercially space kind of thing going on behind the Songus at what is one of the only patches of grass in downtown. It is, I think it might be it's one of two patches of grass downtown that is owned by the city. The other patch of grass being Boarding House Park, but that's the National Park Service. Or it's not owned by the city; it's owned by the university. That patch of grass,
right?
Yeah.
That's the university owns that. 'Cause that's where they want to put their.
That's where they want to put their practice
hotel.
rink, and that is a much loved piece of grass by residents along the Riverwalk. What I've been calling the Riverwalk neighborhood. They're kind of
And the high school. I'll tell
And
you,
the high school.
We use it a lot.
and the high school.
At one point, anyway.
And I use it a lot as a downtown resident. And so what I was looking for was, well, we own this surface parking lot that we do not use for parking on Hall Street between the Songus Center and the post office. It's where the mud pit for the kinetic sculpture race goes. And so what I'm looking for is, well, that's actually a bit more space. It would pull the development, instead of going towards the river and building the cruise ship that UMass Lowell sometimes gets criticized for, of like, well, this is our UMass Lowell campus where we keep all of our money, and that's the city of Lowell. And instead, let residents continue to enjoy that little patch of green space. The university gets a little bit more land and can hopefully build something maybe even better than what they originally wanted to. And we pull that development towards downtown, the Acre, and the rest of the city, instead of blocking it in behind the Songus.
So for that to happen, you'd need it's certainly worth exploring.
It's a lot of moving parts. Yeah.
In terms of a hotel space, that would be more valuable than where it would be back. But although it depends on how do you meld it with the plans that UMass Lowell currently has for their practice rink. But my thought is a patch of grass that's smaller is not the same value. If you're looking at it from the city's perspective,
Right.
I'm going to guess, and I'm not an appraiser. I'll have to ask Ray Booten when he comes in a couple of weeks. But my hunch is that plot of land that the city owns is far more valuable than that patch of grass that UMass Lowell owns that's boxed in by the Songus Center and the river in terms of future development. So is your thought that the university should, if there's going to be a swap, there needs to be some equity in the money exchange here to make it a wash?
Hence explore. hence explore. I think that real estate transactions are, despite my misgivings on the Lapoli thing, real estate transactions are somewhere where I have a decent amount of I have a good amount of trust in the city administration to if there were the appetite from the university, and if the city believes that this is feasible through and I really hope they do, to work out a deal that is beneficial to both parties. I think that we can always give less of that Hall Street lot if we wanted to retain a parcel. But I would also think that the economic benefit, the benefit to the city and to businesses in downtown by pulling that development closer to you and everybody else downtown, the economic benefit there is probably higher than building the same thing on that patch of grass.
Actually, I just had a thought though. But would that mean you'd have to build over what's currently a street? Is there, like when you do the little drop off that circle, the rotary in front of the Songus Center, then you can take a little street down past. Am I thinking of the same lot, or
No, you're thinking of a different lot.
Okay.
So the university actually already owned the lot you're thinking of, between the Songus Center and the parking garage. That the university owns. Part of the reason that I think they can't build there is that there's a main line for the sewer that goes right under that road that can't bear any weight.
Are you talking about the university's parking garage or the 𝐒𝐞𝐚𝐬𝐿 garage
The
that
𝐒𝐞𝐚𝐬𝐿.
Lowell High uses?
The 𝐒𝐞𝐚𝐬𝐿
No, there is. So if I'm facing the Songus Center to the left, there's a parking lot. Is that the Hall Street parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a little road there, though, that goes from the front door of the Sangha Center, those steps where everybody walks up, and goes down towards the Perkins Street area where
Yes.
UMass Lowell has a lot, and
Yeah.
and Sea Dog Brewery is coming. So you've got a street there as well. So
Well, that would depend on if they actually want to physically connect it to the Sangha Center. And
Correct.
I know with going in the park, they want to physically connect it
Right,
to
would
the
be
existing
one,
Sangha.
like a
It would be
seamless
one
building.
seamless building. If they were to go to this Hall Street side, again, the word explore is carrying a lot of weight for me. Then, perhaps we're not still connecting the building, or perhaps there's a bridge, or perhaps, you walk 15 feet from one building to the other building. You won't die.
we could get a tunnel like at Lowell High.
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully with a dry system for
There are
fire suppression
convention
instead of a
centers.
wet system.
There are convention
Yeah.
centers in Boston.
Yeah,
that have tunnels.
that would definitely make some sense. But and you're right, it is worth exploring because it is I think it's a far more valuable piece of land. I just would like to see the city get a little more
I would like to see the little.
Yeah.
I would like
for
to
it.
see the city get value for it. I would also think though that if we were to do this and we have some say in what's getting developed there, if we get, in addition to the practice rink and a hotel, if we got some decent streetscape and some commercial space there as well, and we start pulling traffic towards, hopefully the post office moves someday, and we can start
You
pulling
completely
traffic.
want to redesign the downtown. I like it. It needs
I want foot traffic to move into downtown, and I think going between the Songus and the river and keeping a self-contained space, we can talk about, oh, well, there'll be extra people here, but if they are never stepping outside and they're all, they're sleeping there, they're going to their convention, there's a place to eat over there, why are they ever going to go into downtown Lowell versus building out towards Father Morissette? And then you just got to get past Lowell High School, and you're in.
Well, I wanted the land in back of the building, but when I had the 1997 renovations, what have you, George wouldn't, he said, no.
shifting gears.
It cost a little money,
You mentioned the budget. It looks by all indications like it's going to be a very difficult budget, both city side and also for the schools, based on at least the governor's proposal. And there was a letter last night from the manager to the school superintendent, which, if I read it correctly, was, hey, some changes need to be made. Talk about the budget, if you would. How challenging is this going to be for you folks? And is the city, based on the free cash, the surplus cash, and where we're talking about for a tax increase, it sounds like 4.5%, 5% or so. Is the city able to keep services as is now, or they have to look at cuts even then?
Sorry, I'm pulling up. I have a spreadsheet that I was to pull up so I can make sure I have my number correct.
Okay.
I think that we're in for a rough ride with this budget. I think you're also looking at probably, I'm trying to remember the last number I heard. I'm calling it 5%. I think the city manager is saying 4.6% hit on your taxes and my taxes. We also last night had the piece about the refuse, the trash bin fee going up, which doesn't affect me, but it affects everybody else. I think that we need, if we're asking residents to pay more, and this is something you asked during the campaign of everybody, you'd say, oh, and if you don't think so, where would you cut?
Where are you going to cut? Yeah.
I think, and I hinted at this earlier, we do need to take a look at the top, right? And when you look at the kinds of raises that our ordinance employees have seen, and they all do a great job. This is not a knock on anyone's ability to do a job, but at a time when we're asking residents to pay at least another $100 to put their trash outside, we're looking at a close to 5% rate increase. For my neighbors, you're going to look at yet another hike on your resident rate for parking. We also need to be looking at some employees who have seen 20% plus raises at the top. When you have some top level employees who have gone from $190,000 salaries to $250,000 salaries in just a couple of years, I think that's a tough conversation, but it's a question that we need to have.
Would
It's a
that be in
conversation
all?
we need to
Would
have.
that be in all departments though?
I would hope
Schools
so.
are-
I would think so.
No, I'm talking about school department and all.
Right.
Included.
Well, but see, but that's the $1 million question, because I understand if you're going to ask residents to swallow a tax increase, you should ask city employees to give something up, and we can talk about the top level administrators all we want, but you let's say, take the example you gave, 190,000 employee now gets 250,000.
Right.
The reason we did some of that is because we were told we were losing top level talent to cities and towns. I know my town, Chelmsford, stole a bunch of people from Lowell. It became a priority with district representation to stop that, and it looks like it's stopped. But let's say we go back to an era and say, well, if they're going to leave, they're going to leave. We saved $60,000. That's not saving your city budget. You're looking at a $500 million budget. So if we want to make a difference, we got to get down to every single employee, all the union employees, all the school employees.
So look at, I have every salary from, I've got 2023 through 2026 at this point. I'm not going back to 2022. And we don't have 2027 yet. When you do just the raises on ordinance employees, and I'm open to the fact that I might have missed. I know Councilor Robinson did ask for this about a month and a half ago. I wouldn't have done this myself if we got a response. So if the number is more accurate out there, I welcome that response at a meeting. I'm looking at about $700,000 though. Okay. Which again that's not all of the money, but $700,000 is a lot. And I'm also not saying let's cut everybody's pay and revert them to the 2023, 2022 pay. But I sure hope that we're not looking at another year of $15,000 to $25,000 raises at the top of the ship. That's all.
Look, I fully understand that, but
then you can have a conversation about, before you have a conversation about bargaining unit workers who are on an hourly wage, because I'm talking city side, not school side, right? Before we get to the point where we're talking about people getting paid an hourly wage, I think we need to have a conversation about what our salaries look like. Because $70,000 over a short period.
Could I add to that? Okay, because you need your labor force. I said before, I had 34 custodians in the 22 building, and now it's 16 for the whole thing. I don't know what it is now. But the issue is, you're talking about that, but how about programs? The issue is, I think you have to look at some programs that, whether it's school department, city department, or what have you, no longer have a purpose.
Right.
Or the purpose is minimal. I mean, the thing is, there has to be a reevaluation of what your goals are and what you want to do. I mean, because it's right. It's empty. There's no big amount of money coming to us.
I think I agree with the former mayor here, and it's school side and city side. I think that the school side does get a lot of heat for being administratively top heavy. I don't think it's an unreasonable amount of heat that they get for being administratively top heavy. The city side is also top heavy. We need to be looking, every dollar matters, and budgets are about choice making. It's just one of the things that the superintendent said.
But would you add programs? Do you know what I'm saying? Because the thing is, my responsibility is this, and this. Your responsibility is all of this, all of that, and all of that. And
I think we need to look at what the benefit of the program is. If you're talking about, so one of the items last night was there was still ARPA funded is $136,000 to continue operating the library's bookmobile. Yeah. I think personally that the library's bookmobile is a pretty good service. Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal service. I do.
No, I fought for it.
Can I disagree on that?
No,
you can disagree. No, but that's what this is about.
The library.
Here's your bookmobile right here, folks.
But the library.
Grab a tablet. There's your bookmobile.
Was that a point? I forget what they call it for the library, but it's like net school spending.
Right.
The city wasn't meeting net school spending, so to speak. I'll use that term for the library. And that was one of my last votes. We got more money for the library. Not a lot, But the thing
And
is,
so I would be hesitant. I would be opposed, right?
Yeah.
To cutting $136,000 from the library, which is already kind of operating on a
Yeah.
fairly minimal budget from the city. If you're talking about programming, that's a program that for the amount of money does a lot of good between the
who does
bookmobile and everything else.
Who does this serve and for what purpose?
Correct. And are we getting enough of a return off that?
Yeah.
Versus, I'd have to go back and look at more programs. I've been doing salary.
You know,
Right.
but actually, that's a good example. I mean, and sometimes you may have to sacrifice it, but you have to know why.
All these are debates that have been had forever in the council chambers and whatever. But when I ask these debate questions about where do you want to cut, I'm talking about real. I'm talking about when you tell people, yeah, it's not going to be a 4.6% tax increase. It's going to be 2.6 because we're making real changes. And let's call it a $500 million budget. I'm just going to deal in round numbers here. That's what the city has. 75% of it, perhaps 80% of it, but I'm just going to go with 75. I'll go with the lower number, is salaries, wages, benefits, retirement, insurance, and everything for the employees. $375 million. So you can talk about your $160,000 bookmobile. You can talk about your $60,000 cut in an administrative pay, $700,000 and all. If you really want to make a difference for the taxpayers, if this is really about the taxpayers, you've got a $375 million chunk of money plus a bunch of unfunded long-term pension liabilities and stuff that is somebody's going to have to deal with that, because in New York City they're about to find out the mayor is going to take their money for that. But But everybody, all of a sudden, when I start asking these questions and anybody broaches the discussion about, well, we really need to look at these salaries. We need to look at these contract negotiations. And everybody suddenly runs. And prime example, the facilities department.
Right.
The second somebody tries to change things, all of a sudden people get nervous. Well, does this mean I'm going to lose my job? And, suddenly the idea of privatization. Non-starter for you, which we'll get to to that whole discussion. But it's a non-starter for a bunch. When I talked to Paul Georges yesterday, he pointed to that. He said, that's not going to happen on my watch, blah, 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 blah. So can we at least then stop pretending that we care about the taxpayers? Because if we're not even looking at exploring things that are going to save real money.
But look how defensive you just got, Teddy. Now my turn.
I got defensive?
If we're going to talk about cuts to people making an hourly wage, and you're unwilling to talk about cuts to the top.
I'm willing. Everybody gets a cut.
No, you didn't say that.
Everybody.
Okay, I'm good.
Everybody.
I feel better now.
Tom Golden, Liam Skinner, Greg Hudon, let's put them all on the line. But if we think for a minute that we're going to save the taxpayers anything just by cutting administrators, we're going to score some political points. But until we say, you know what, how much are we paying teachers as opposed to, DPW workers? Right. And that's where the fun starts politically, because now you've got union battles that take place. Now you've got voters who take place. Each teacher, each police officer, each firefighter, each DPW and parks employee has a family, has an aunt, has an uncle, and those suddenly become votes on election day. And that's where I'm going to go back to 2010, and former State Senator Steve Panagiotakis told us that, the private sector can no longer afford the public sector. And yet anytime somebody mentions real change, not this cosmetic stuff about bookmobiles and whatever, government loses its mind and says, no, we're digging in.
I think that if you want a level of service, it costs money.
Yep.
A level of service costs money. I think that right now we're paying a lot of money and we're not getting a level of service. I think this, and I go back to the snow removal. The snow removal is a prime example. At the top, we've had a lot of raises, right? We don't have an operating procedure. But then you have a city council, and I said it on the radio this morning. I said it on McDonough's show yesterday.
On who?
On the other guy on YouTube.
The other media.
Yes. So this is the final stop on my 2-day tour of all the local media in the city.
How you're enjoying school vacation?
It is.
Counselor.
Yeah. I had to ask my wife.
Most people go to Disney. They don't do a media tour.
It's everyone with a podcast. Here I come. We are paying good money, right? We're asking residents to take another hit to the pocketbook. And if we are not providing a level of service consistent with the amount of money that they are being asked to pay in taxes, that to me is where the problem is. I don't mind paying my taxes. I'm a public high school teacher. My wife's a public high school teacher. I pay my salary. That's one of the only things I get actually for my taxes, because I have to pay. I pay for parking on an enterprise fund. We pay for water on an enterprise fund. We have to pay a private company to take our trash away because the city won't even let us pay them to take our trash away. I have no problem paying my tax bill when it looks like when you're getting the level of service that you're paying for. Part of the problem and part of the reason you're looking at a 4.6 to 5% hit this year is poor financial planning that took place over the last 10 years. Because we could have been, and this is not on any one person. This took place over a number of people. As Jerry Nutter likes to point out, we have a huge excess levy. We also have known that the debt payments on the high school were coming since this high school project started. We haven't made any payments. So now you have to pay. There's no way out of having to pay your credit card bill on that high school project. We should have started paying this years ago.
So look, I don't disagree. And by the way, I've come around to the point where I expect a certain level of service and I understand you have to pay for it. Now, if we want to talk about real change, I'm ready to back any politician that wants to talk about it. What can we eliminate? What don't we need? You say service. Do we really need, greenies, block your ears, you're going to get pissed off. Do we really need this whole recycling nonsense? You're talking about barrels again last night, larger now. Recycling was supposed to save us money. It's actually cost us a ton of money.
Right.
Throw it all in there, burn it. We get more fuel in extreme cold weather from burning refuse than we get from wind and solar. But nobody wants to talk about all this stuff. So I'll just kind of put it aside. But let's transition to our next topic.
I'm not going to talk about
the
recycling service. But
the thing is, there's so many issues.
Yeah, don't. Your constituents stay the hell away.
Because when you bring in the recycling and you bring in, whether it's good for the environment and what have you, that's a whole other battle. Yeah. That's why it's so difficult for people to say, let's look at the programs that we have, what we need, and
well, here's one. I'll take one.
We talk about it, but
let's take one hit. I will happily take the angry phone call that comes when this one airs for this one. Can we get a real evaluation? 311 looks like it's costing us over $1 million. Can we get some real data here? I love the idea of 311. I'm not opposed to 311 existing. Can we get a report? And I'll put it in the form of a motion at some point, right? But what has the impact been of this? If we're going to pay over $1 million to run this program, what has been the impact to the city of Lowell? Are we getting a return on that $1 million investment? Are we utilizing it? How many residents are utilizing it?
Are the people using it the same ones that used to just call or text City Hall?
And are they still calling me after they put it in? And so if we're not getting any sort of buy-in, either we need to fix that quickly, or that program is a waste of money. And I'm not saying that it is a waste of money. I like 311. I use 311. But if we're talking about budget cuts, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
And that's when the fun begins. But so you talked about we're not getting a level of service, and I'm going to use the snow removal as an example. So we've got to look at change the way we do things. Well, you're not getting a level of service in the schools in terms of cleaning your rooms in second shift, from what I understand from the council discussion. And yet a councilor, John Dakota, sat here last week, talked about privatization, and people started losing their minds. You spoke on an issue, and we're going to get into that whole recusal part of it and the ethics part of it, but you almost drew a line in the sand about the privatizing second shift custodians or whatever the case. Why aren't you willing, by the same degree, willing to look at that as much as you're willing to look at snow removal? Councilor
Liang really touched a nerve last night for a lot of people in the city, right? In that motion, and I was very happy to very loudly second that motion. Here's why I have a problem with privatization on a number of fronts. The one that I'll talk about right now is in Lowell. In a lot of places, we're friends with a lot. I'm not. I'm 30 years old. I moved here 10 years ago. It's one of the strengths of being a blow-in, I guess. is that I'm not actually friends with any of
In
these
3
people.
years, you'll be a hack just like everybody else.
But right
Don't
now,
worry.
but right now, I am not a hack, and I'm going to hold out as long as I can. And we tend to give those jobs to our friends, our being right. Those friends are in management positions. They're not pushing the broom, right? They're not. We know they're not. I know the guy that pushes the broom. He's in my hallway. His name is John. I love John. I don't have a problem with the guys who work for DPW, whether or not they shoveled or plowed or used the Bobcat on where they were supposed to. In Lowell, as in a lot of places, we don't want to hold management accountable because those are our friends. Those are the people that, you know, they were on the council with us. I don't want to target him because he's fine. He does a great job. So let me find a different one. That was not on purpose. That really wasn't on purpose.
Jerry Nutter has suggested move John Leahy to the second shift, so you have a supervisor on that second
That would make
shift,
sense
and
to me.
potentially, whoever's managing the custodians in the second shift seems to not be doing their job based on what you guys tell me.
And if the custodians aren't doing their job, and that's a dubious claim to me. I think there are some that aren't. I think that my room is always clean. My hallway, I've moved 4 times this year. The hallway's always been clean. Is there documentation? Because that's on management. It's not on me. If I do a bad job at work, it's not on me to write myself up and go to confession and sit in the confessional, and Mr. Fiato can be where Mr. Samaras is, and I'll go down without getting caught and say, you know, Mr. Samaras, I did a really bad job today. I did not have my lesson plan. It's on the management. It's on, so we have 2 facilities custodial managers. They seem to work on a similar shift. But if workers aren't being managed, I would expect that they're going to do less than is expected. Because if you get away with it once, you're going to do it again. And if you look over and you say, "Oh, Billy Billy only does half his assignment every night, and he hasn't gotten in trouble in 5 years or 6 years," why I'm a sucker? Why am I doing that?
But Billy may be connected and have friends.
Right.
I mean, the issue is, I appreciate
That's how it works.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about the administration, but you have to say the same thing about the labor force.
Correct.
Because there have been many good administrators that have left because the labor force is far politically stronger than they are.
Correct.
So it's a two-way street. There's no simple answer to that. And I'm saying, if you're going to look at it, you look at it completely.
I agree with you.
You know.
Actually, I do. Actually, and I'm not just politically saying I agree with you, and then I'm going to disagree. I think that privatization is a failure, right? It's acknowledging a failure. It's a failure of management. It's a failure of to an extent, labor, but really, at the end of the day, it's a failure of your management to hold people accountable. And if we are failing to hold people accountable because of these kinds of political connections, we need to crack down on that. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be hard. It's not a popular thing to say, "Oh, that's Jimmy. He's so-and-so's cousin. He played Little League with this." I don't care. I truly don't. This is not Lowell of the 1980s anymore, right? This is people are paying a high tax rate. People renting in this city are paying if they're paying market rate rent in my neighborhood, they're paying $2,500+ a month to live in Lowell. There is a level of service that you expect when you are paying those kinds of prices, and it is our obligation as a city to be providing that level of service.
Well, expectations are changing.
Yeah.
There's no question. But the thing is, I go back, and I'm listening to both of you. I can understand where you're coming from, and I can understand where he's coming from. I mean, and the thing is, when you say put everything on the table, everything really does, though, have to be put on the table. I mean, it has to be put on the table and discussed, and the realities have to be discussed. And then you take the steps that are necessary. Because if you don't, I'm going to tell you something, it's going to only get worse.
Right.
So if I think I see where we're heading as a city. I can read the tea leaves. I can see councilors that got the facilities department ball rolling suddenly reconsidering, and one told me outright, there's no way that thing is going to happen, but which begs other questions. But we'll blame it all on management, mid-level management, up-level management, whatever. If management starts cracking the whip, and at this point, who even is responsible for the custodians? And I don't mean to pick, by the way, on just custodians, but this, you could look at every department and see some level of this. But is it the school facilities people, or is it the principals who aren't writing these warnings and these tickets? Jerry Nutter did a whole thing on that. He really got into the weeds on it. So, but let's say we get this down, and it still doesn't fix the problem. Do we then need to kind of look at facilities again and potentially privatization? Would you be willing to go there at that point?
I don't think there's ever a reason to look at privatization. I really don't. These are public jobs. They're public jobs, right? These are public school buildings. They are public, whatever part of the city you're looking at. If we're not willing to spend money on public employees for public work, then what are we spending? What are we spending the money?
You're spending
on?
Taxpayer money, and if you can save taxpayer money and get a level of service that's superior,
But you can't.
I'm not going to compare Chelmsford schools to Lowell, but I will say it's worth exploring. The superintendent of Chelmsford Schools, Jay Langs, directly told me he went privatization on the second shift. He directly said it's a better product,
and it's going to depend. But it's going to depend on who you talk to. If
and
you
I'm
talk to
happy
Jay
as
Lang,
heck.
If you talk to Jay Lang, and I'm never applying for a job in Chelmsford, so I can just say that. if you talk to Jay Lang, do you expect me to be surprised that the guy who said, hey, we're going to privatize the custodians is, after doing it, going to say, I think I did a really good job?
But you can talk to the teachers. You can talk to the students.
But the teachers that I've talked to, the community members that I've talked to will say, this is worse.
They say the schools are worse.
They do not like that it was privatized.
Do they not like it because the same reasons Lowell doesn't like it, because that means that's public jobs and people are losing them?
I've heard that things go missing from classrooms.
But the thing is, can you really make decisions based on I've heard? Because the thing is, I've been through the thing, and what I heard going to the supermarket or what have you could change your direction or what have you. We privatized cafeteria services. Yeah,
were you the head of schools at the time, or did that happen after your tenure?
The thing is, I think he's going in the right. You have the right thoughts, okay? But the thing is, to shut everything off, you hurt yourself in the debate, because now I want to debate if I were, union person, or if I wanted privatization. Instead of listening to the good thoughts, I'd be fighting you on the privatization.
You're also taking away a powerful bargaining and potentially disciplinary tool if you just write it off. It's amazing how much the talk of privatization has us talking about the service.
The thing is, I get involved in certain negotiations. I didn't want to privatize, okay, because I saw some merit to what direction we were going in, and the thing is to do it right. But the thing is, I've learned over the years, the thing is not to shut myself off no matter what, and to listen. And if you listen, it's not that it's going to change your mind, but you have a better understanding and gives you a better chance to work things out. But the thing is, if you chose a certain direction, I might just want to challenge you for the fun of it.
I think
he was that kind of guy.
Yeah, seriously.
Part of the problem, though, is that right now you have one side that is saying, "Well, we just need to be open to these." How do I know that there was talk about privatization? Right? Because if I was wrong, and this is what I keep going back to, if I was wrong and this was not a move down the path to privatization, when a certain I went up to I followed my rules. I spoke as a citizen. We talked about this before we went on the air. If I stand up there and say, this is a move towards privatization, this is all these things that I said when I spoke. If this wasn't the path that we were walking down, I don't think we get as angry as some got.
Councilor Dakota's mentioned privatization. Last week was the most recent, but he'd mentioned it before as well. He said that's something to look at, and I actually admire him for willing to look at it.
I think what I'm saying is, if this were just something, and if this were just a thing on the table to talk about kind of over here and make sure we're thinking about it, if that's the stage we were at, I think that you would not have seen the reaction to my comments that you saw. It's more than an option on the table to consider. It, to me, looks like the angle that we're pushing, and we know that it's unpopular to say, and so you say, oh, I'm just open to it. And
I was ready for, I wasn't ready to listen. I was ready for a fight anyways. That's what you're saying. I mean, some of us are. I mean, but the thing is, I'm just saying you have to be able to put everything on the table, and you all have to listen. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And I'm not saying that you have to listen. You have to listen.
I don't. I'm a podcaster.
He's difficult.
I will listen. I'll have the conversation. I fully say outright, I do not want to privatize any of our city services.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm not going to listen to the argument and that we can't meet somewhere? I'm sure, hopefully we can meet somewhere, but I'm not going to go to privatization. There's got to be somewhere else. If you need my vote, there's got to be somewhere else that we can meet that is not privatization.
Yeah. Are you going to say it in such a way? Look, I don't see the value of privatization. You're going to have to go a long way to convince me.
Right.
This I am for this direction of doing this in a better fashion.
Right.
We owe this to our constituents and what have you.
Right. I would tell you it's worth exploring, but we've kept you for a very long time, an hour and 10 minutes and counting, boy. Some of it commercials, and I do have to upload this by noon or somewhere thereabouts, but what everybody came for. Those of you still watching all this time, or if you fast forwarded saying, when the hell is Panos going to talk about it? It's time. So that discussion about privatization, custodials, facilities department, led you as a city councilor who works at Lowell High School to recuse yourself, even though you didn't say the words on a microphone, but to recuse yourself procedurally and then address your colleagues and everybody in the city council chambers as private citizen Sean McDonough. Push back after you finished speaking from Councilors Dakota and Councilor Scott. The city solicitor said violation of ethics. You said you got an ethics ruling. You spoke. You followed up the following week, clarifying which specific things and whatever. So let's talk about the whole Sean McDonough is a school teacher and he's got to speak on a number of school issues. And when I said back in the beginning that this is going to be a regular occurrence, I didn't imagine just how right I was going to be. You're calling that ethics board pretty much every single week at this point, aren't you?
I call them a lot. I like to make sure I'm dotting my I's and crossing my T's. I am also aware of the political environment that I am currently in, and if you're gonna rock the boat, you need to be you got to make sure you get your that bright yellow fisherman suit on, so
and the boat doesn't have any holes.
Correct. Yeah.
You recused yourself from a discussion about cameras on buses that would record people not stopping for the flashing red lights. Stunned me. That tells me that you're going to recuse yourself a lot.
No, so the reason I recused myself from that one is because I could have, according to ethics, I could have voted on and participated in the discussion on the putting the camera on the bus, the ordinance to say, we're going to do traffic violations. The issue was the second piece, which was 8.1 last night, which was to then use that money for 100% of that money was supposed to go to the school department's transportation costs. Now it's financed to the department I work in. I can't vote on that. My understanding when I recused myself and said, well, this is a good motion, it's going to pass on its own, and then they were supposed to. What I understood was they were then going to take 8.1 out of order and just immediately vote on what to do with that money. So I said, well, I'll just leave at the beginning. They'll take the 2 votes. I'll come back in. A councilor decided that they had a problem with that, and for that reason, 8.1 failed last night. 8.1 failed. We don't have that fund now because I had to recuse myself. Councilor Noon was absent. Councilor Rourke had left the meeting, and I think Councilor Robinson was somewhere else briefly, and I think it was Councilor Dakota for some reason decided to call for the vote while there were 7 people sitting on the floor on a motion that needed 8. I couldn't believe that they took that vote. I don't know why you would call for a vote that needs 8 votes when you have 7 people sitting on the floor, but he did. And so it failed. And had they taken it out of order, right? Had those same counselors that like to yell at me for my ethics violation, just that wasn't my supposed ethics, had those same counselors just not objected to suspending the rules and letting that vote happen, it would have passed. Had they waited for Councilor Robinson to return to the chamber, it would have passed.
So you're regularly calling the ethics department. You say you're doing it proactively in some cases. Let's talk about the big fish that everyone's talking about, though. You spoke about an issue that you acknowledge you can't speak on or vote on as a city councilor. You recused yourself. The solicitor said that it's a violation. You disagree. Why do you disagree with the solicitor's ruling? What makes you think that you can do it? And also, I believe by citing the law the following week, you've indicated that it's not the last time you're going to do this. Is that accurate?
The reason I cited the law last week is because what the solicitor said and what Councilor Dakota and Scott implied, and then some said on other media, is factually it's wrong, and it is an attack on my character, which under the rules of the city council, I'm allowed to take my point of information and say, you're being mean to me, basically. It's the easy way to say it, right? No being mean to me, I can correct you.
You're supposed to be nice to each other. Only the podcasters and radio hosts are supposed to.
Well, and you're not supposed to do it on the floor. If it happens during the course of a meeting, and it was reflected in the notes that the solicitor said he broke the and I had called ethics prior to that meeting. Ethics had walked me through exactly what I needed to do. They said it's 20A, or sorry, 268A, section 20. It's the city councilor's exemption. They read it to me. They gave me the whole precedent of how you do it. They said that you have to follow regular channels available to a member of the public in order to speak. You're not entitled to any additional privilege as a counselor. You can't, engage in the same back and forth that you would from the floor. You can't return to the floor until after the vote. I said, okay. They said, stand up and leave the meeting. I stood up the day of this meeting, I stood up and left the meeting. The mayor acknowledged that I was leaving. He's the chair of the meeting. There's your recusal. I was in the... So just to be clear on that, though, so some folks have said about that, he didn't technically recuse himself. Do you have to say I recuse myself to be recused, or does the mayor have to say Councilor McDonough and Councilor whoever is recusing themselves? By procedure, do you have to say those words? What I have been told is that if you leave the room before the discussion starts, and which is why so they suspended the rules and took that one out of order. So as soon as Councilor Robinson, who suspended it, started saying the motion, I went, oh, I gotta go, because I had it on my list with the asterisks to make sure I did it. I needed to leave before the mayor had then read the whole, this is what we're discussing. By leaving, I have recused myself. And the reason, my understanding, that a lot of the time you could just stay, you could stay in the chair and say, I'm not going to participate in the discussion. Sure. I'm recusing myself, and stay in your chair and do nothing. But you're physically there. So you have to state it. If you're going to stay in the chair, you have to state it. Otherwise, did you really recuse yourself, or were you waiting to see if you were going to say something? So I left. I can't act as a counselor from the public area. The second time I called ethics, yesterday, I had said, I'm getting pushback. I imagine that this issue is going to come back again. I said the city solicitor claimed this, and the direct quote from the ethics lawyer was, I have no idea why he would say that. I said, me either. It was a different lawyer this time, and she had just walked me through the exact same process the previous ethics lawyer did. I said, can you send me something in writing? She said, I'm not going to get you something in writing if you need this in the next couple of day or two, but there is an advisory on the website. I said, I thought there was, I had read it. She said, want me to pull it up and direct you to it? I said, please do. So she directed me to the advisory on the website, and I won't read the whole thing, but it's under the city council. It's the conflict of interest law for municipal officers, blah, 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 blah. And it says, You may always act on your own behalf, and you may always state your own personal point of view. However, you should make it clear you are acting on your own behalf and not representing someone else or acting in any official capacity. You may even represent yourself before a board. For example, if you are abstaining from participating in a matter which affects your property, you should leave the table, sit in the audience while the matter is before the board. You may participate in this matter only when other members of the public are invited by the board to participate. When you participate, you state that you are not acting in any official capacity and just as a resident, which is exactly what I did.
Okay. And this goes for specifically for a council meeting, not a planning board, zoning board meeting, or whatever. This governs any city councilor in an active city council meeting in which they've been sworn in. Correct. Or whatever, is allowed to speak from the public, provided they recuse themselves and follow these guidelines.
Correct. That is what my guidance from ethics was. Yes.
All right. And you spelled that out to them clearly in your phone calls and requests. So by the way, this is not your thing. This is because it's my pet peeve with the Ethics Commission. I think the whole thing is ridiculous. I think the laws, the fact that you felt antsy about even voting on a camera on a school bus, tells me the ethic laws need a complete makeover and modernization. But they are the rules, until they change them, we should follow them.
The other piece at this point, he said it on the floor, so I feel okay. I had been quiet about my feelings for some time now. And I told you this before we went on the air, but former Mayor Samaras wasn't here. The reason that I don't typically ask the city solicitor for his opinion here, and I go through the ethics board, is that a month before we were sworn in, I had asked the city solicitor if I was like, just making sure, like, I am going to have to take the day off work to go vote for the mayor and do all these things. I'm a city employee. What am I doing? He said, oh, well, you have to vote for the mayor. This is what you do. It's part of the job. I said, okay, great. I'll take took a personal day. It did on his event. 15 minutes, Teddy. 9:45 in the morning, the day of swearing in, after being told that everything was going to be fine. I was on the radio on the Friday before. I kept very quiet about how I was voting for mayor. On the Friday before the vote, I said on the radio that if 𝐒𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 had asked me to vote for him, he would get my vote, for a number of reasons. At 9:45 in the morning, the day of swearing in, the city solicitor says, I don't actually think, I think you should abstain from voting for mayor. I said, what? And so
So the solicitor told you, which by the way, I had speculated about here on a couple of podcasts, whether you could vote or not. And I'm glad you're confirming that it was an issue and it was a discussion. So the solicitor told you before the vote that you shouldn't vote.
But I already knew that I could vote. This is the thing. I'd already asked. I knew that I could vote for mayor. There's like 6 layers of separation between. I don't work for the school committee. I work for the school department. The mayor is the mayor. It's the chairperson of the body that I sit on. He just also happens to get one vote over here. The mayor is not within the purview of the school department. Mm-hmm. I was good. I had talked to enough other people. Yeah.
So I mean, I did AI searches of it and I got different answer each time. So I don't know what the ruling is, and
it was the fact that the advice changed once we knew how I was voting.
So I was just going to say, you just made a claim here that the solicitor told you could vote a month ahead of time. And then you believe because of who you were voting for, you were suddenly told you can't vote. You shouldn't vote.
I'm not saying whether that is what I believe or not believe, but that is what happened, right? I had asked, I was told everything was fine, and then I was told something different about day of 15 minutes before the vote. Ridiculous.
Okay. Have you had a conversation with the solicitor about that? Did he explain to you the reasons why he thought before the meeting you're not allowed to vote for mayor?
Briefly. Okay. And I was clear, by the way. I want to make sure that we're good here. I was good to vote for mayor. If you can't tell, I'm neurotic about calling ethics. I was absolutely, I dot my T's, I cross my I's.
Right. Have you spoken about the issue about speaking from the chamber or speaking from the public podium?
Twice now.
With the solicitor?
Yes. Briefly.
Have you guys come to an understanding? Because you're going to do it again, right?
Oh, I'll do it again.
Okay, so the same back and forth will come.
I would also, quite honestly, I'm still waiting for any sort of acknowledgement that, you know, you can't just say people broke the law. You can't do that. I don't care if you're a city councilor and you're on one of the other media shows or you're the city solicitor. Like, you should not be throwing accusations about people breaking or not breaking the law willy-nilly. That's irresponsible.
Okay. All right. I'm listening to both and what have you. The issue of dealing with the Ethics Commission or any of those things, you're dealing with opinion, okay? And opinion changes. And I've dealt with them in the past. I had to deal with them on a serious issue. The person had brought in, this is what the Ethics Commission said. I called the head of the Ethics Commission, complete opposite on something. But that has nothing to do with this. If I was on the city council, though, I would be asking the councilors to, you know, go to the Ethics Commission of the state, ask for a review of your position and what you can say or not say. Because I would feel that the thing is, okay, you recuse yourself, but you can go to the podium and speak as a citizen. And to me, that's a very powerful position. The podium is where a constituents speak. Two, you have your department heads come in and speak and give you information. Or if there's a serious issue, you get many people from the community come and speak. And they can change the mood of that city council or what have you. And so the thing is, to me, it gives you a position of power, in a sense, over me as a city councilor. So that's what I'd be concerned with. Do you understand? I'm not talking about the issues that you're in the school department. I'm talking about it's a feeling that you have an upper hand on.
I would be happy to.
So
speak.
I would want more clarification.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
So, well, I think what you're trying to say is
rules.
It does seem, and I'm not saying you can't.
The council can do that,
not.
though. The council can request, you know, a position on this.
It does seem kind of contradictory that you're not allowed to vote or speak from the council floor. The reason for that is because there's, according to ethics, there's some kind of conflict of interest, and yet you're allowed to speak on the thing. Yes, you're doing it as a private resident, and residents can speak with a conflict of interest, but everybody in that room knows you're City Councilor Sean McDonough. So to me, that's a little bit of a different thing. But given the fact that you're going to probably do this again, and whether the solicitor has gotten other guidance or whatever now, and no one's going to have any objection to it, would it make your life a lot easier and everybody else's life a lot easier if there was if ethics got something in writing, if this specific situation was spelled out in ethics and we had something in writing that then everybody would know, hey, look, Councilor McDonough's not lying. He's spoken to them. This is what ethics told me. Ethics said, sure, but also we have this advisory online that already spells this.
But that's why I'm saying the city council can ask for it.
The council.
And I think in the other piece to point here is that the city councilor's exemption, which prevents me from acting in an official capacity on anything under the purview of the school department, is separate from Section 19, which is the financial interest of yourself or an immediate family member. I have no financial interest in the custodial contract. So it's Section 19, which is what the solicitor tried to point out. And Jerry Nutter pointed this out on InsideLowell. It doesn't even make sense.
You're represented by the same union, though.
But I don't work for them. I have no financial, right? Like I don't get any money. I actually pay money. If there's a financial interest, that section doesn't say of you personally. It says of you personally or your immediate family. I am not the only city councilor with an interest in the school department for myself or my immediate family. I work there, my wife works there. Other councilors have children that work there. Another councilor has a brother that works there. Another councilor has a wife that works there. And so if that's how we're going to do this...
So does ethics treat that differently? You've pointed out a number of reasons why I think ethics really needs to update their laws, right? Because, and I can't imagine how small towns deal with this, but there's going to be a constant with everybody. You're a different case because you're specifically an employee yourself, whereas the other counselors that have family members. Do the ethic laws treat that differently? Are you a different case than, say, your wife or a counselor's son, daughter, wife?
I am not a lawyer, but so Section 20 and Section 19 are obviously different, right? Section 19 is where you get the financial interest piece. It's not just for public. It's not just for people who work for the city or have a family member who works for the city. It would be the same if, I don't know, if my father was a real estate developer and he wanted to do a deal to develop some plot in the city. I can't touch it. My dad is not a real estate developer. The Section 20, the city councilor's exemption piece, is there's actually no penalty assigned to Section 20. Section 20 just says that I am allowed to be a city councilor. I don't get paid. I can only get paid once. I can either get paid city councilor or I can get paid as a teacher, but I can't get both. And it says...
Paul George has made sure that that's an easy decision for you.
Yes. And it says that I cannot participate in any matter within the purview. I cannot vote or officially act on any matter within the purview of the department that I work for. If I do, and there's an injured third party, then they can redo the vote if they file a complaint and make me sit out. There's not like it's not like Section 19 where there's potential monetary damages or you could have 6 months in jail or whatever. Like there's none of that. It's, hey, you work for the city. This had to do with the city. You screwed me out of this contract, or you hurt us in some way. We complain, redo the vote, and kick him out. So,
and we've seen in the last couple of years a number of ethics rulings went against the city, but there was no penalty for it.
And if I'm not
really a violation,
if I'm not voting, if I'm not voting, I'm not on the floor, I'm not acting in an official capacity, then I'm not. There's nothing to do. But it allows me to speak, right? So I'm not losing my ability to have input. I just can't act on it. And I don't have a financial interest. I'm not a former city councilor who voted on a TIF representing the company that got the TIF in some expansion effort, right? Like that's not what's happening.
All right. Sounds like we're going to have some fun, and especially during budget season as well.
He is.
I don't know if I am.
All I'm going to say is I could see this coming, and not to the degree. Again, it was stunning to me last night that you got so, I got to be careful here that even that damn school bus camera issue, and even so what about the money component of it too? I mean, if that's an ethical violation, I can think of a million other things that are.
I was happy to quietly leave, not vote, and come back in. I think former Mayor Samaras made a point about me being, I don't know if you called me theatrical or a showman. But there is a point where it's like, okay, you guys all wanted to make a big stink about me going to the podium and speaking and whether or not I said it. So now I won't just quietly leave. No one had to know. It gets recorded in the notes. I'm not there. Fine. I'm going to interrupt you and say I'm recusing myself. Are we happy? I think this is actually really annoying. I think it's far more work than it needs to be. I think we would be better off if I could just quietly slide out and slide back in.
But I don't mean to be insulting.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I know that. No, but so people know. But that's the position you put yourself into, and that's the perception.
Right.
And the thing is, that's why, as Teddy said, it would be good if we got all the pieces together. Yeah. I mean, because it's important. Because your role right at this point is even more important than you think it is. I mean, we don't realize sometimes how important and what effect it has on community members. And if you make the right vote and you've made a decision that helps a lot of people, you're going to find it's a reward that you can't beat.
So if you're inclined to get it in writing, I'd be more than happy to publish it so everybody knows once and for all, and hope, and maybe leaves you alone. If you are proven correct, which you sound very confident, everybody leaves you alone.
When it comes in, I will send it off to you.
All right. Well, hey, what are you doing on April vacation, by the way? If you're not going to Disney, if you're smart, you'll go to Disney. If you're not, come back here the Wednesday of April vacation. Good discussion here, and you've gone longer than Manager Golden and and Mayor 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 when they're on here. So
you had a lot.
It's a good. We had look. You've been for somebody barely a month and a half into their term. It's been a very interesting first month and a half. So I wanted to make sure we get to it. I apologize to everybody out there for making you wait till an hour in to get it, but yeah, it's TV, the cliffhanger comes, whatever. I'll make sure this is the tease though. So Councilor Sean McDonough, thank you as always for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Mayor, Bill Samaras, your worship, thank you as well for joining us. Thank you for for tuning in to today's Daily Pulse on this Wednesday, February 18th. How are we going to top today's discussion? Well, let's bring in somebody even more controversial tomorrow. State Auditor Diana DiZoglio is going to join us via Zoom. Erin Gendron, former Lowell City Council candidate, will be here as well. She was excited about getting to interview the auditor, so she blew me off on Monday and decided to come in with the auditor. But anyway, lots to talk about with her. You want to talk about a controversial figure in government? You got it. And then Friday, we go live at 10 a.m. It's the Daily Pulse, the show that keeps its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. Till next time, everybody stay safe, especially out there when that snow comes later on today. We'll see you on the other side.